Good afternoon, one and all. Welcome to another episode of the Money Talk. It is September 20th, and you're tuned into episode 11. We want to thank you for taking the time off to link up with us this afternoon as we seek to speak about finances from a biblical perspective. It's your boy, God St. Bernard, once again, thanking God to be alive and to be here with you guys. Those tuned in on the radio, welcome. Those joining us on YouTube, Facebook, and on our website, welcome. And we look forward to spending the next hour or so with you where we can discuss financial matters. Finance from a biblical perspective, it's money talk. DJ Sabi, I ain't forget you. I know you're there with me. I know you're there with me this afternoon.
Boy, you flowing like a professional boy. Boy, what get around up?
Yes, so it's another episode, and today we have, we'll say a special guest, but it's no stranger. We have Mrs. Denisha McDaniel. I would to say I forgot his surname there for a minute. But we have Mrs. Daniel with us this afternoon, and she'll be tuning in. She'll be chiming in on the discussion. And today we're going to be providing you with some steps to manage your finances and how to survive. Steps we believe, if implemented, would help you in surviving during this COVID period. But before we go into the discussion, we're going to take our theme song. DJ Sabi, I hope you have it lined up there. So we're going to take the theme song and then we'll come back with you guys.
Money talk, money talk. So the love of money is the root of all evil. Money talk, money talk. It's the money they love. Yo, cause them get caught up in the right thing. The wealth and the fame enticing. Come on, no wanna do the right thing. The love of money blind them a get caught up in the right thing. Wealth and fame enticing. Come on, no wanna do the right thing. The love of money define them. Father God, keep us please from them religious schemes and them pretentious deeds with them infectious seeds. Keep us please from them religious schemes and them pretentious deeds with them infectious seeds. Money they love, money they crave. Love they have for money, make them turn into a slave. Money they want, that is the aim. Love they have for money, go drive them insane. Is money talk for this? Money talk for that. If you say you got no money, them get heart attack. They want to know how much you earn, cause they were part of that. Got to learn to discern, you can't take it back. For them get caught up in the right thing. The wealth and the fame enticing. Come on, no wanna do the right thing. The love of money blinded. Them a get caught up in the right thing. Wealth and fame enticing. Come on, don't wanna do the right thing. The love of money define it. Father God, keep us please from them religious schemes and them pretentious deeds with them infectious seeds. Keep us please from them religious schemes and them pretentious deeds with them infectious seeds. Money is essential, but the love for money, that detrimental. It's to the leaders, please don't abuse your credential to mistreat people by the things that you mention. Hey, could them get caught up in the right thing? The wealth and the fame enticing. Come on, don't wanna do the right thing. The love of money blinded. Them a get caught up in the right thing. Wealth and fame enticing. Come on, mama, no wanna do the right thing. The love for money define them. Father God, keep us please from them religious schemes and them pretentious deeds with them infectious seeds. Keep us please from them religious schemes and them pretentious deeds with them infectious seeds.
Welcome back. We're back with you. It's your boy, God St. Bernard, joined with my co-host, the one and only DJ Sabi. And this afternoon, we'll be discussing with you some steps to managing your finances and surviving financially during this COVID period. Um, a little bit later, we're going to be bringing on Mrs. Denisha Mark Daniel, and she's going to share a bit on some of the points we'll be bringing out. So we look forward to her joining us. As we know, Mrs. Daniel is from Excelsior, right? Let me get the information again because I believe her services will be needed by some. Right, she's a personal finance manager, and she owns the business. It's a personal finance management business, and dedicated to growing and creating personal wealth through proper management disciplines. So strategies proven by corporations, we've personalized those principles to help you get ahead in your finances, offering a suite of services, financial assessments, financial goal setting and planning, personal budgets, personal income tax preparations, financial literacy sessions, personal finance coaching, couples finance counseling, speaking engagements. So all these are services which Excelsior provides. But Sabi, before we go into the discussion, we like to have a little icebreaker. So today the word for today is prudence. Prudence, and even as we go into the steps, I believe this word would prove to be very vital in the whole understanding of the concepts or the steps that we are looking to bring forward to people, and being receptive to that information. Now, Proverbs 27:12 says, "A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but a simple pass on unpunished." Likewise, Proverbs 8:12 says, "I, wisdom, dwell with prudence and find out knowledge of witty inventions." All right. So here we have the word prudent and prudence coming out.
Yeah.
And from it, you can see that it speaks of someone that more or less looks ahead.
Yeah, and make preparation
Yeah.
even for the unknown.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you, what in your interpretation is prudence, or to be prudent?
Mm-hmm.
What's your understanding of those words based on the scripture?
For me, I think it really entails one being I will not just say wise, but wise also and cautious.
Mm.
Yeah. Cautious in that if we're talking about money, for example, becoming because you have a lot, you decide you're gonna just spend it all out crazily without even thinking about what is important.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be wise how you use your finances and make prudent choices with your cash, or whatever asset you may have. So spend cautiously and use your head, in my own words. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just to give you some meanings of the word prudent, it is acting with or showing care and thought for the future. So a prudent individual is someone that I would say they look at the future, they assess things, right, and they act with care and with great understanding and I would say some analysis, right, and they plan accordingly to move forward. Likewise, prudence, it means the quality. It refers to the quality of being prudent.
Yeah.
Cautiousness. So you would have mentioned the word caution, right? So prudence now is an individual that is being prudent.
Yeah.
You understand? Is an individual that is being cautious.
Right.
Is in his approach to the future. And even as we go into the main topic for today, I do believe that we need to sit back, analyze what is happening in the world today, and we need to plan, we need to prepare, we need to be cautious in how we approach the future financially, because the fact of the matter is things are not as it was,
Very
say,
true.
2 3 years back.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we might have our jobs, and we may feel like we're not affected directly,
Yeah.
but indirectly, our economy is going through, I would say, a very tumultuous time.
Mm-hmm.
And it might take a time to trickle down to our local communities. But for example, you would see prices going up
Mm-hmm.
of basic goods. I can give you this example. I went in the supermarket one, like say 2 weeks back,
Mm-hmm.
to get a tin of pineapples, and the price of the pineapples was $4.25. I went
Mm.
back the following week.
Mm.
The price is $5.75.
You gonna buy a whole dollar
A dollar and
and
fifty
50
cents.
cents? Wow.
You understand? And that is just one item.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have your job, but on the whole world economy, things are happening, things are changing.
Yeah.
The scope of what we knew, it is being readjusted. So we likewise as individuals, we need to be prudent in how
We
we
manage. Yeah.
manage, how
Yeah.
we plan, and how we prepare for the future.
You know, to add here, I believe planning is one of the things you can do if you want to exercise prudence, to being prudent. Yeah, being able to have a plan in these times is very important, especially where you have so much uncertainties. We in a crisis after all. You may not say it's a financial crisis, but it is a crisis, world crisis. Yeah, and we know that our country would feel it.
Yeah.
We could jump high, we could jump low, we will feel it at some point. Some people are already feeling it. You understand? And it's hard as when we decide to speak about that. I was like, this is a very difficult conversation to have in these times because some folks are feeling it more than some are. You know, I mean, there are some industry currently that is not feeling it because they are necessary for survival. Yeah. So you have to examine your current situation, see where you're working, see what's happening, and come up with a plan, you know, and decide how you're gonna handle stuff. So planning is one of the steps you could take towards being a prudent individual or a prudent family, if you want to add it that way. Mhm.
Yeah. So today we're gonna be providing some steps as to how you can manage your finances to survive during this COVID period. We would also be touching a bit on if you have a business, a small business or so, some of the things that a small business can do in order to survive during this COVID period. So, as it relates to individuals, families, households, we're going to be providing you with just about 7 steps. So, feel free to make notes, feel free to comment. Um, Saying good afternoon to Mr. Peters. We see you live, we see you locked in. Thank you for tuning in this afternoon. All right. So, step the first step, Sabi,
Mhm.
you need to identify someone who is responsible for managing the finances in the home,
Right.
right? And that person will be responsible for the spending, keeping to the plan, or slash budget, and they would be responsible for reporting periodically on how the family is progressing according to plan.
Mhm.
And a lot of time we don't do that. Um, it's done very sporadically, or the husband takes care of the bills and the wife takes care of the say the food, etc., right? But you need to come together and put down pen to paper what that person will be responsible for. How is the family going to be spending their monies? And later on, we're going to touch on the budget, um, to go into more details. But you need to come together as a family. Um, in some cases, well, like myself, is me alone.
Yeah, I was just gonna say when it is
you
you
know?
as an individual,
Yeah.
especially when you have current expenses, you need to figure out what is important, you know, and
Mhm.
you have to decide how you're basically gonna handle your monies in these times.
Yeah.
Whether be it in a family situation or you're
Or
individual, you're
individual.
single, You have to handle your money wisely, prudently. That what will keep playing for the rest of the afternoon, I believe. So,
Yeah.
for the evening,
Yeah.
So,
All right.
yeah.
Secondly, point number two or step number two, you need to assess and understand where you are financially.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, what do I mean? You need to list all your assets. You need to list all your liabilities or loans or debts. Sometimes you owe people and not institutions necessarily.
Yeah.
But you need to list these. Um, and apart from just what you owe and what you own, you also need to list what your income is and what your expenses are monthly.
Yeah.
So it gives you a very good picture as to where you are.
Yeah, reoccurring expenses, because sometimes you have those that are not really monthly expenses. So
But
there's
yeah,
like
some one
something
off.
that come off, and but you have some important bills that like your electricity bill, light bill, telephone. If you have two phones, you might want to decide. No, another time to have two telephones. You know what I mean? And you get to decide, but you want to write them down and be real about it. Stop trying to fake the thing. Some people they be in denial. Yeah, they face a hard time, and yet still they don't want to make changes
They don't want
to rectify the problem that they are
True.
now seeing. So be real about it. Gotta get a real stance today. Let's go. I'll take the real stance. You give them theoretically, and I'll take it on the real side.
Yeah. Right. So you need to do that. You need to also assess what monies is needed monthly, and you need to start putting a plan in place as to how you can save these monies, right? So the household may need $2,000 a month to cover all your, as you say, recurring expenses.
Right.
But Savvy, another thing that persons don't do is, you can factor in these one-off expenses as a recurring expense monthly. So when they come up, you have the money set aside for it.
For example, you have your house insurance to pay.
Every year it comes up.
If there's a one date for it, but basically you can lighten the load by see how much it is. And the nice thing about it, if you take last year's premium, some instances it may increase. But let's take vehicle insurance for example, that is more likely to reduce in expense. In terms of the cost. What you pay last year, you should pay less next year. But if you budget in for last year's premium, because you don't know what next year's premium is going to be, then it will be in the green. Ideally, you will end up with more. So you start saving monthly towards that. You know what I mean? If you realize is $1,000, divided by 12 from the day you pay, and start saving the next month towards that particular expense. And don't touch it.
Don't touch it. Yeah, that has been the hard part for some people, touching it.
You're touching it.
Yeah. So you also need to factor that in when you're doing your assessment. Right? And next, step number 3, this is where we would like our guest, Mrs. Danielle, to come on the live, because we need her expertise.
Yeah.
Welcome, Mrs. Danielle. Hold on, we're not hearing you.
We're not hearing you.
We're not hearing you.
Hold on. I think you're all right. There you go. We can hear you now.
Thank you for hearing me again.
She's excited, God. I like that.
All right, so we on to step number 3. Create a crisis budget. And what do I mean by a crisis budget? You need to categorize what expenses is essential and what is non-essential. What you'll be able to discontinue spending on immediately. From your experience, Mrs. Danielle, what is your general observation, as well as your recommendations when it comes to budgeting?
Do not panic. That's my
even then.
No, because it may sound like it has nothing to do with finances, but that's the major thing. Stop worrying, stop panic, and do not give way to fear. When you start to give way to fear, then the panic buying, the panic spending, the overdrive in your mind about, oh gosh, I wonder if you're gonna have enough. That begins to happen. And then everything that you would have worked towards where it comes to financial discipline and management, it just goes out the window. So that's the main thing. Stop panicking.
Yeah.
Okay?
No panic. No panic.
Right. No panic. So you guys pretty much covered what a budget is and how you manage during a crisis and everything you would have gone through before. But I just want to put it in a more applicable sense, right? When we create budgets, we usually do so in certain categories. A lot of people have different ways of calling it, but basically we have your obligatory expenses. Those are things that you must do. So I know we cater to a large audience of Christians on here, so you would have things like your tithes, right? And then we have those other mandatory expenses like loans, and so those, and a lot of the things that come off the top off of your income. So, taxes, NIS, that sort of stuff. So we have your obligations. Then we have pleasure spending. Well, of course, groceries, food, those kind of things coming under obligations. We have your pleasure spending. Those are things that you do out of impulse or you plan to do them. So it may be vacation, it may be where I feel like pizza today, or I feel to go to a hotel, or I feel to, those are the impulse ones. Or, when you put aside a little something for yourself for the month and you decide, oh, I'll buy a new book, or I get my hair done. Or for men, you buy a new suit. I don't know what men do for pleasure spending. But those sorts of things. And then we have the savings type that goes on the savings, investment. You plan towards the future, you plan towards your retirement, that kind of stuff. So those are the basic categories that your spending goes into. What you need to decide now is to work on the pleasure part. So you may decide that Netflix is not a must right now. It may not be a lot. It may be $30, but in a crisis, every single cent counts. So that's a lot. You may decide, like a lot of women did last year, to go natural. That way you don't have to spend money on the hairdresser, right? It may seem it seemed out of the way then, but during the lockdown last year, it was the norm for a lot of people. You had to get your hair done by yourself, right? Even for the guys with the barbers, your wives, your sisters, your brothers did your hair. So those are things you may want to consider. Because in a regular time, these things seem like necessities, but during a crisis, what is mandatory and what is optional completely changes. So those are things you may want to take into consideration as well. And food, that costs people a lot. So whereas you would have eaten out before, you have to eat home. So you have to make considerations for how you manage your finances in that aspect. On what you spend for groceries, it will change dramatically as opposed to what you would have spent before. And like I said, every dollar in a crisis counts. So do not abandon your savings plans. Do not decide that let me just go and break the bank and take everything that I have. While I must say it's important to have some cash on hand, because you just never know. So have some cash on hand. At that time, you may find persons driving around selling groceries, provisions, deliveries, that kind of stuff. You don't have any time to go to the bank. We know Grenada is, they won't walk around with a credit card machine so you can swipe. So it's important to have cash on hand. You guys want to input anything at this point?
You were speaking about, for example, the pleasure spending and so. Now, as I would have mentioned in the introduction, a lot of people might not be directly affected, so they have their full income coming in, right? Would you recommend persons like that also considering doing up a crisis budget?
Yes, definitely, because budgeting in a crisis and creating a crisis budget are two different things, right? If you're creating a crisis budget, you're preparing ahead of time for times of crisis. If you're budgeting in a crisis, the crisis is already upon you, okay?
Yeah.
So I don't want persons who are safe in terms of finances to think themselves excluded from this.
Yeah.
The way the economy is heading right now, everybody is affected in some way. You may not be affected directly, but you are affected indirectly because you know somebody. Or there is a time coming where things are going to change. And for even the persons who are safe per se, you may find, because I realized that happened a lot last year, is that you start to bulk buy because you don't want to be caught up in the rush with everybody else. No, when you start bulk buying, that affects you because now you spend more than you usually would have. You start stockpiling because you want to make sure that if things go awry, you have what you need in hand, right? So don't exclude yourself from the equation thinking that it doesn't affect you. No. And I mean, I don't want you to start thinking, oh my God, crisis is going to hit, I'm going to die. No, but you still want to plan. Okay. So you plan ahead just in case. If it comes to a point where you don't need the crisis budget, then that's all well and good. But it's better to have prepared. There's something called the 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. That's a tongue twister. So it's better to have a plan in place and you don't need it than to not have a plan and then you need one.
Very well said. I would like
Yeah.
to chip in there. I believe so. I believe it's important to have at least 6 to 12 months worth of money reserve if you can. And some people may say, boy, this is, very difficult to do. Um, Having trying to save that money, especially now, could be, rather complicated. But there are things you can do, I believe. Sometimes you may have some unwanted things in your house that has value that you don't really need. Yeah. So looking at what you have and seeing what it worth and what you can get for it in these times to, to create that cash that we're speaking about currently. Because many persons might say, well, easier said than done. The crisis is already upon me, right? For those who are not in it, they may not feel that way. But those who are in it may say, it's already upon me. So how do I find that extra cash? I'm currently not working. You know what I mean? Yesterday, for example, the ladies, they spent for the last 2 weeks on Team Family, and as I mentioned it, they spent quite some time talking about the importance of having a backyard garden and so on. We talk about buying food, whatever you can do to reduce your expenses, you can do so. If it means, plant some corn on the side, two cucumbers, two head of lettuce, some seasoned peppers, whatever it is you could plant it. You know what I mean? Because food is one of the things right now. Let's be honest. In Grenada, I not to say no more.
Yeah. Serious.
You got?
Before God on that in times like these, something that's very important to do is try to do on your own. Let me explain what that means. If you usually spend money to have your car washed, it may become important that you begin to wash your car yourself, so you save that money, right? And I mean, I don't want us to become penny pinchers, but I want us to be prepared, okay? Because whenever the pandemic locks us down, what we realize is we become self-sufficient in that whoever is in our current space physically is who we rely on. So you can't go to get your car detailed. You can't go and ask somebody to do certain things. You have to sustain on your own, right? And as much as you could try to get yourself more accustomed, like Justin would have mentioned, if you could plant 2 ears of corn in the back, right? Things that you could do for yourself that could save you some money and create a little bit of more income, as small as it may be. You may want to get used to trying those things on your own. I can't come up with more examples. The car was the easiest one to come up with.
We have a question here. Someone asks, can you give us some tips for saving and budgeting? Should we budget for saving? And if so, how much?
Yes, you always budget for saving. Anytime you deal with money, it doesn't matter what it is. Because let's go back to the Bible, right? The Bible said the first 10 is God's. He gave us a percentage to work with. Now, there's a lot that you can learn from that. Not just that God already told you that this is what you do by principle, right? He gave you an amount to work with. So it helps you build a foundation on how you plan for the rest of your flexible expenses, so to speak. So if you know that it's not $100 every month, you work with a percentage. So everything that you do, you plan for it. Even if you're giving offering, right? And this may sound controversial to some people. You plan, because even if you're standing in the service or if you decide to do it when you're home, your mind already tells you how much money you've already worked a whole system out in your mind. You decide, okay, I have $100, I need $80 this month, this week, because I need $60 for gas, I need $20 just in case. So you know what? I have a 20. I could put $20 for offering. You've planned it. You may not have sat down and written it out, but you've already made a plan. So yes, you plan to save. And there are lots of different systems for saving. Some say you start off as low as 5% of your income. I won't tell you a fixed figure because everybody is different. If you work for $300 and I say 100, that's tight for you. If you work for $10,000 and I say 100, that's like a drop in the bucket, right? So you work with a percentage. The lowest should be 5. 5 is really low, but for how the Grenadian economy is set up, that's even tough for some people, right? So 5 should be the lowest, and you could go as high as 50% of your salary if you can manage that much. So for the person who asked the question, what you do is you go back to the steps that would have been mentioned before, in that you assess what's important in terms of expenses for you and your family. And when I say important, stick to the obligatory expenses. Don't think about, oh, I think I would feel for pizza next month, so let's include that. No, like mandatory things. You work that out first, then based on what's there, because I'm not going to stick you to say take the savings off the top, because it's crisis management at this point. When you have taken out what's absolutely necessary, then you work a percentage of what you have left and you put that towards savings, and then you disperse the rest as you see fit for your family.
All right, lovely, lovely. I do believe that the question was answered there to the person that posted the message. All right, moving on. Step number 4. Well, we would have touched on this here. Decide what expenses can go. Well, we somewhat touched on it.
Yeah.
All right. Now, this is done to ensure that you have the savings for months to come. So it might mean when you're doing up your budget, there are some expenses that will need to go in order for you to be able to save towards the future. You wanna add anything different to what you would have said initially, Mrs. Daniel?
No, not necessary. You have it covered.
All right. Next, we have negotiate terms and conditions where possible with your financial institution. If you can consolidate loans, that might be a good practice. So instead of having multiple monthly payments, you bring everything together under one loan where you have one monthly payment. Most time that works out to be very favorable, and you end up being able to save monies when the month comes due to the reduction in the monthly payments. You could actually speak to your institution about reducing your monthly payment on your loan. Sometimes it's a mortgage. You might be paying $2,500, and they are able to reduce your monthly payment, thus giving you some monies in your hand that you can save or you can use for whatever crisis expenses or whatever the case might be. Or thirdly, you can ask for a reduction in the interest rate. And normally when you get a reduction in the interest rate, you would find that your monthly payments tend to go down as well, and or the loan period is shortened, right? Would you recommend, Mrs. Danielle, that persons at this stage seek to negotiate terms and conditions with their financial institution?
Yes, that's a point I actually had, because, okay, we're covering a cross section of people. We have those people whose jobs and incomes are safe, We have those who aren't. We have those who have fixed incomes, those who have flexible incomes, right? So something that's very common are those people who have a fixed, limited, or no income at all. Because we know how things have changed drastically over the last year and so. Something I can suggest is you speak to your financial institution if you fall in that bracket and see if you can be offered a moratorium where you pay the interest only for a period of time, so that frees up some of your income so you could put it to something else. Because unfortunately, in Grenada, we have a lot of people who are not able to meet their monthly expenses based on the incomes they get. We have persons who have large families and a one income household. So yes, definitely negotiate the terms and conditions of your loans and see how you can work with your financial institution to make things a little bit more flexible for you in terms of spending, especially for now.
Okay. Sabi, what's your take on that?
Repeat the question.
Negotiating terms and conditions with your financial institution. Would you recommend persons going to their financial institution at this time?
Well, one of the things I recognize is that many people don't know what exists simply because they don't ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
So they may have, experience in hardship simply because sometimes you have a situation where husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend have a joint loan or mortgage, whatever the case may be,
Mm-hmm.
and one person now lost their job due to this whole pandemic. Pandemic, sorry. Yeah. And that was just being funny, by the way. And then, the one salary cannot carry it. So
Mm-hmm.
if that's the case in your situation, I recommend that you speak to the bank rather than staying silent and having a situation where you cannot service what is before you and you never ask a
Yeah.
question, and there were possibly solution that you didn't inquire. Another thing I think you can do also is if you just speak to somebody. You just never know what advice they would give. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to I want to recommend that you do ask the question to your loans officer or your financial institution. And beyond that, besides that, also speak to somebody. Call that and ask him what he recommend. You know, or call what's the initial business again?
Excelsior.
Yeah, Excelsior Services. That's it. And you'll get some advice. I'm not sure she'll charge you. She's a very genuine person, but you won't know until you ask a
Ask a
question.
question.
I
Like
have a
that?
strange suggestion, if I could just interject.
Yeah, go
Sure.
ahead.
I know Hope FM offers hope, right? And something I am all for. There's a scripture I completely like is where God allowed the people of Israel to prosper in times of famine, which is why I prefaced everything I said by do not panic and do not worry. While we are offering suggestions, and this sounds like a dismissal, and I'm very sorry, but the thought just came back to me. As children of God, I need to remind us that we need to have faith, okay? Even if things look bleak on the outside, it looks bleak outside there, and you can be persuaded to become fearful. I do believe there are several opportunities for us to thrive in this economy as much as it doesn't look that way. If we put our faces on the ground towards God and to seek out what it is that He's saying, He will provide solutions, right? So, as much as yes, we're offering advice on how to manage, that doesn't mean that you abandon all hope and think that this is the end of it. God could significantly increase incomes and you could still live lavish lives in the midst of all of this, right? So let me stop there, lest they think that the program is over.
That's okay, because I actually while you guys were speaking, that was one of the thought that I had in my mind. Not besides having faith, but to have it in a practical sense now.
Mhm.
Thinking about what other opportunities that is present in the midst of all of this that you
Mhm.
can possibly, so sometimes people tend to get so worried and fearful and they panic and they don't look at the blessing that is right in front of them. So you may have a skill, you may have a talent. There may just be something you could do, you know. But the thing is, just as I said, if you and ask, you wouldn't get an answer. If you and try, you will not know if it will work.
Mhm.
So you have to if you have the faith, then you have to put the works with it, put the action to it, and God will respond. That's one of the best thing. We could tell you to pray, but you could pray and sit down there. Yeah, I mean, yes, God will, as my partner say, use a sparrow. You will send a sparrow to feed you, if you have that much faith. But at the same time, if the children of Israel never moved away from where they were, then they would not have known that God could use a sparrow to feed them. So you have to get up and do something still, Don't accept defeat. Our God is undefeated. You got?
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. All right, next point we have simplify your life by selling things to get cash and or to get out of debt. So, for example, Sabi would have mentioned, well, if you have two phones, you could sell one, right? A lot of times over the years, we accumulate a lot of stuff at home,
Yeah.
and we have not even used the item in years,
Boy,
but we just have it there.
talk about those them ways and thing they have in you. All the
Yeah,
plates, and my mother give me that. I ain't want to sell it. I ain't mocking nobody, but I'm being real. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
and we accumulate all these stuff years and years and years of just buying.
Mine,
It's like you
mine
see
is
it, you like it.
You,
Yours is
you,
mine is
you can
books.
see it, right? The new one is filled in the back. You can see.
So a good idea would, you can look at having a garage sale. You can look at putting up a lot of these items. You won't use it.
I got to it, and these times you don't even necessarily need to have a garage sale. That's things of the past.
Well, yeah, you put it up
You
on,
have a status on you
yeah,
WhatsApp. You know what I mean?
social
You
media.
have Facebook. You have Instagram. You have things. As wifey just did. Instead of looking at the problem, seek
Seek
solution.
solution.
That can possibly make money for you.
Yeah,
You understand? So that's a good point, the wifey.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Some households they have multiple vehicles,
Yeah.
right? It might mean you sell a
Sell one.
vehicle.
Yeah.
You might have some small debts. You pay off these small debts, and you really ease the burden on your monthly income when the month comes. So those are just some ideas.
Yeah. What I hear you saying there is that if times are becoming uncomfortable for you financially, because we're talking about money,
Mhm.
then what are you willing to do legally or rightfully or righteously to bring some ease?
Yeah,
So as you said, some people may have, and I know it's not good to panic sell. Just as Denisha said, don't go to
oh yeah,
panic
no,
buy, don't panic sell, because you don't know what Sheila, you don't know what tomorrow holds. You know what I mean? And you may just have something that I really want to sell. You're selling it. You're forced to sell it
Mhm.
because of the
Mhm.
situation. So sometimes you have to explore all options to make sure, and you really think of the thing before you make a decision. Yeah.
Mhm.
So buying in, we talk about expenses and income. So you have to know how to generate income and how to manage your expenses at the same time.
Yeah.
So very important.
And then the final point we have on the families or individuals, reallocate some of your time. And when I say reallocate your time, for example, you're free when the afternoon comes, instead of going home and watching a series on Netflix, utilize your time now into things that would generate or benefit or bring benefit to your family or
Hmm.
your household.
Yeah.
So I know on Team Family for the past 2 weeks they've been talking a lot about backyard gardening. So imagine you're now spending an hour in the afternoon in your garden. What you would find happening, you'll be able to reap a harvest
Yep.
every week, every couple of days to bring into your household.
Yeah.
So instead of you having to go in the supermarket now to get fruits and vegetables.
Stick up in that. And balling, oh my God, boy, them people in Grenada are wicked. The thing growing right here, and they selling it for all our money.
Yeah,
The solution is in your hand. If you
you
have
understand?
land, or if your neighbor have land and you can beg him for like a small portion, so to speak, to
Mhm.
plant something, then do that. Because as we mentioned, seriously, we have clothes that's there that we could keep wearing. And we wouldn't feel no how we on the way to go. We home most of the time, so we go to
Mhm.
work. Some of
Mhm.
us are home constantly. But the food part we need it for survival.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need internet. Some people might say, well, without the internet, I could die. But if it means you have to get rid of it, then it shall be. You know what I mean? If you have cable, for example, and you figure like, hey, now is a good time to drop that bill for the time. We can always get it
Yeah.
back. The key thing is that I don't owe the company. If I ask them to disconnect me, you know, nothing wrong with that. I want a temporary disconnection until I can afford all this service again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you must be able to you know, I believe like in these time is you need to think about what is really important, the things that you really need,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to at least be comfortable. Yeah. And you try to see how you could take care of those things, you know. Very
Yeah.
important.
True.
Yeah.
Mrs. Daniel, what are some ideas that comes to mind as it relates to things that you can do with your time, like idle time or free time you may have that might bring some benefit?
Well, before I get into that, I was just thinking while you guys were speaking that this is such a beautiful opportunity, meaning the pandemic. Understand what I'm saying, right? It's a beautiful opportunity for us to realign ourselves to the way God expected us to be. Because I do believe that life has distracted us, and we've gotten caught up in doing a lot of things that do not bring tangible benefits to our life and to our purpose. And I don't want to sound too deep, but listen, I'm a Christian, so at my heart, these things don't come out, right? So we're supposed to be purpose driven. God did not waste dirt to make us, and He did not waste His breath. So there's a reason why He created us. And I honestly believe, and if we look at our lives, we could probably say the same for each of us individually, that we've gotten distracted and caught up in life so that we've been misaligned and not been doing things that God may have been asking us to do because we were either too busy to hear Him or too busy to care. So I do believe that in this time, and if you guys are honest, you may, even people who are not even Christian, they would say that their families have gotten either tighter or they would have reassessed a lot of their life decisions while they had time to sit and think during the lockdown. And like you mentioned, reallocating your time, you realize that a lot of the things you've been spending time doing were not really beneficial, and you could redivert your time to doing something more useful. So you go to bed earlier, you wake up a little bit earlier, you pray, right? You spend time in the garden, you spend time with your family. So there are lots of things that I do believe we would have spent money and time on that we probably should not have done. So even now, teaching discipline, while it's always important to know the disciplines of management, um being older, like in terms of not teenagers anymore, and we're into adulthood and we're more mature as we grew up in church or we've known God for a while, we should have already been more disciplined in our finances if we're completely honest. And saying we don't know is an excuse because there's always an opportunity to learn or to know, right? So yes, we use that opportunity to read the Bible a little bit more, see what it says about finances. If you don't want to ask myself, if you don't want to ask Gath, and if you don't want to ask somebody who knows, use the internet to Google something. Find out what somebody is saying about how you should spend your money, how you should invest your money, how you should save your money, that kind of things. And whereas just don't say you may not need the internet, yes, you do. You may not need cable because you could
But
find.
if you can't if you can't afford the thing now, what you gonna do? You gonna ask your neighbor for his password. I didn't see you though. Ask your neighbor for his password. That's what you have to do. See, neighbor, I can't. Let me be honest with you. I can't afford the internet right now, but I need it. So can you tell me your password since you could afford it? You know.
But Sabi, you could give the man a reduce,
It,
a
you
stipend.
give my
Yeah, that's
stipend
what,
to us again. All of that. You know what I mean?
that's
So
what
you can pay the $400. Say
Yeah,
what I'll give you $20, you
get
know.
20.
I know how to come in the veranda or to go under your house and sit down on my phone. That's okay.
Yeah.
You know.
something
And is that and
negotiate. You understand?
consider it an investment. So at that time now, because you know it's so tight and you need so much, you have to figure out how you're gonna make money with it. So don't just go on Facebook and
Right?
Insta and what do you call it thing, TikTok. Go and read something on the internet that could help giving you some, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah,
will see that may be
yeah.
a good idea. Never know, you know. But I've been
And
like
then
thinking
look.
about this. Like the other day, I've been as you're saying that I look for opportunities. I've been thinking along that line, and I
Mhm.
was reading an article. I think it was 2 days ago, along the line of a lady stated that during the COVID period, she had this one salary. She lost her job, you know, but she
Mhm.
was a teacher, for example, and in hockeys. And what she stated was she went online, she did some research, she started, reading stuff, what she can do to make have multiple streams of income, because I believe that's another thing that's very important. No matter how small
Mhm.
it is, sometimes when you depending on that one thing and that one thing get lash you, your whole body getting filling the leaks. You understand? So what she said was she didn't want that to happen to her again. She had some emergency funds, and eventually that dwindled away. So she had to do something really fast, looking at the current situation and thinking about how not to have it being repeated in her life again. So she thought about how to make passive income. So she created some educational videos and so on, and she made a
Mhm.
page and she posts them, and persons will pay is lessons on things that she is well trained in, and persons will pay
Mhm.
to watch them. Now it may seems as a few cents, but the thing is, you record it once, you put it on the internet, it's there sitting on a server, and it's making money for you. You know,
Mhm.
so you're not giving it no attention, but money is coming in your account because the world is your market at that time. You know, so it's
Yeah.
good. They're good internet option. Got maybe we should look at a couple someday. I kind of want to look into some of them myself right now.
Mhm.
Then shall say, don't
Mhm.
say Denisha, what you're thinking, but yeah. I know she does say I'm crazy, right? Yeah, but
No, no.
you have to look for things. You have to look for things. You have to look for things, and there's always a little time. You might be surprised. 30 minutes, 45 minutes in the night you take towards that.
Mhm.
In the space of 6 months' time, you add up all the time you use
Mhm.
for that, and then you realize, hey, wow, So don't make an excuse. Look for options. And it's only when you start looking you will find. It's a biblical principle. Seek and you'll find. Ask, it shall be given unto you. Knock, and it shall be open unto you. You
Yeah.
understand? So
True.
we have to do that.
True.
Mhm.
Again,
Yeah. So
listen.
just to add, before you jump, hold on. I know God want to jump to his next point. Listen, I was waiting for you to come to the opportunities portion. Okay. It's a beautiful time to seek new opportunities. I mean, earlier on, Justin was saying that whatever skills, something to do with skills and gifts and abilities that you have, but people in this time, anything that you are able to do, whether it's a skill, knowledge you have, you could make money, right? Even if you could drive, there are people who are literally afraid to leave their houses, right? You use real value app, you purchase the groceries online, you go, you collect, you deliver it to their house, bam, you make a fee, right? There are some people, they don't want to have to stand in the line and wait to go to the pharmacy, because we know the pharmacy lines are always long. Charge somebody a little fee, you go, you stand in the line and you collect their goods, you make sure social distance, safe, make sure you're safe and all of that. But there are several opportunities there. There are some people who have lands, they don't want to use it, you negotiate and tell them, here's what, can I use your land? 50-50, half of what I produce is yours, half is mine. There are several things that you could do to make a little bit of income, if you, whether you have time on your hand or not, because you can make time. And the world is our market. There are several things you could do online as well. So yes, look for the opportunities and jump on them, but don't spend recklessly.
True. True. Well, that was my final point. Starting a small business with your extra time or with your free time,
Mhm.
right? And the truth and the fact is, a lot of times we think to start a business, you need a building, you need to get all this equipment and all this sort of inputs
Mhm.
to start a business. But there are a lot of successful businesses that would have started from in a person's kitchen, right? And I believe what you need to do is look for the needs. They always say a good business starts with when you're meeting the needs of people. So you need to look what are the needs of persons at this time. Denisha call out a few. Um, I do not like to go in online and pay no bill. I do not like to go in online and wait.
Yeah.
And there is actually somebody that provides a service. I give them the money and I pay them to go and pay my bills. You understand? It's a small fee, but I guess on their side, the amount they're doing, it adds up. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
I hate to go in line, Sabi.
I just go in line, but it's online.
Yeah, well, and you ain't getting me to do no well, yeah. Yeah, right. But there are opportunities. Mrs. Daniel alluded to them earlier. There are opportunities right in the midst of this crisis,
Yeah.
and it's for us to open our eyes, be observant. Um, I've been going into the supermarket almost every week, and I cannot get sweet peppers.
I got some today.
I know, and last I see sweet peppers in the supermarket.
Yeah.
So there is a need for it,
Yeah.
right? There is a need for it. Sometimes it might mean you just cleaning up a little space on the
Yeah.
side,
It's amazing
and you
that.
put on
It's
a 30 or
amazing.
40 trees.
Bro, if I show you something, I wish I took a picture of what I did just the other day.
Yeah,
And I looked at my cucumber this afternoon and I'm like, wow, this thing growing fast.
real fast.
No, seriously, if you see it, I wish I had a picture to share it. But I think when I in the morning when I get up, I'll take a picture and
Yeah,
keep it for next week. All
yeah.
right. But if I show you what I made my little garden looking thing out of,
Mhm.
I buy in Sive. How much? $4 and something when I use it to chew in the stem. No, I
Mhm.
plant them all.
Yeah,
Yeah, and if you see where I plant them, or if
yeah.
you know have seasoning, she could just go down the step and
Cut.
get. You know what I mean? So don't buy those things.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
And
mhm.
these things just grow. They don't need manual. They don't need too much attention.
No.
I have it in a control area. They plot at the little lot. But the soil is just about this.
Yeah.
And that's I just give it water in the day and that's
Okay,
it.
and
The
that's it.
thing looking really nice. So
Mhm.
the soil and green is fertile. So
Very,
yeah.
very, very.
And we can't stop stressing that we need the food. So if you could fish too, but you don't even need a fishing rod. Just get a piece of line, you
Yeah.
know. Get two sole and crab if you can get jacks. Go by the sea and throw it. They might be surprised. You
You
get
come
too
back.
snappy. Yeah, like food. That is food. And for that day, you have something to eat. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. True.
Yeah,
True.
man. You
True.
have to ride out the storm as
True.
best as you can in these times.
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
Hmm.
Bigging up. We have Grace Divine Noel.
Yeah. Big up
Thanks for
Gracie.
tuning in. We have Jerome Cato.
Hmm.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
And all the
Uh,
silent listeners
and on the
and
side,
viewers. Good night to all. Yeah.
Sabi, we got no messages on the WhatsApp today.
Nah, I didn't see anything coming thus far.
Okay, okay,
Hmm.
okay, okay. So, guys, you've been tuned in to the Money Talk, where we discuss finances from a biblical perspective. Today, we had Mrs. Danielle, Danisha McDaniel from Excelsior. Um, Mrs. Danielle, if persons want to get in contact with you, how can they do that?
I'm available on social media. The page is at Excelsior GND. That's EXCELSIOR GND. So that's the social media handle. Same handle at Gmail. That's for the email, and 406-8884 on WhatsApp or via calls.
Okay, nice, 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 nice. Sabi,
Hmm.
to add before we close?
Yeah, I again will encourage persons to practice being prudent, you know. Um,
Mm-hmm.
use use your head as much as you can. Um, know your current situation, and even though you remember what your previous situation may have been, don't be like caught up with the previous plan
Mm-hmm.
just in case things don't continue the way they are, you know. So even if you have food and you can afford to buy food, still go and plan something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you can afford to pay all your bills, doesn't mean that you should just spend and buy stuff you really wanted to buy all the time. Still save something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
God, I practically I the last 3 months I've been saving a little bit of money that I would say I didn't really have too much use for in a particular account. And I saw that thing work today and I said, thank you, Jesus,
Yeah.
where the source for that monies was affected because of the current situation. So at the end of this month, I would not be getting that monies. But because I had a little thing put away for the last 3 months there, I'm able now to still pay a bill with that thing, that money that I put aside
Hmm.
the last 3 months. Yeah. And I saw it, and I was like, wow, this thing really worked. So why is this storm until the storm pass and things come back? If I didn't have a plan and I see, well, this was cash that I already have use for now. So you know what? I had things that I want long, I want to buy this thing. Let me go and just spend it widely.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then at this point I would have been in a funny situation because I abuse my excess. You check what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in God bless you, don't think it's an opportunity to yes give, you know what I mean? Because I did give, I do what I have to do with it. But that's the blessing. Use it wisely, don't abuse it because you would need it at some point, you know?
True. True.
Mhm.
And just to go over the steps we would have discussed this afternoon, you might have tuned in a bit late. Um, Identify someone who will be responsible for managing the finances. Assess and understand where you are financially. Create a crisis budget. Decide what expenses can go. Negotiate terms and conditions where possible with your institution, financial institution. Simplify your life. And finally, reallocate your time.
Don't leave for Denisha's point. Please find time to pray and seek God. You understand? Have
Yes,
faith.
definitely.
Do not
Definitely.
panic buy or panic sell. If you panic sell, it's because you'll be selling the thing for way less than what it
Then it's
costs
yeah.
and you'll be losing a whole lot more.
Hmm.
That is the piece of inspiration I got today. Panic
Yeah.
sell. Then shutting it on before boy. Neither did I.
Mrs. Daniel, anything in closing?
Um, yes, do not panic. Do not open a door to fear and worry. Okay? God still sits on the throne. Maintain your financial disciplines, and as much as I like the simplify your life part, as much as you can live simply and ride out the storm, do so. And like I said the last time I was there, the Holy Spirit is our cheat. So ask him what it is you should be doing right now. Yeah?
Cool.
All right, all right. So, listeners, we want to thank you for tuning in with us on the Money Talk. We really enjoyed your comments. Knowing Peters, Denroy Peters, is still there. Thank you for tuning in, my brother.
Good afternoon to Miss Bowen. She just sent a message saying, Amen, Amen.
All right, Miss Bowen.
Yeah.
All right.
So, oh, someone just sent a message stating, amazing session today, guys. All right. You see, God, as soon as you get ready to go, they send a message.
You send a message
Well,
as
that's
well.
good. We are happy to know you guys are actually listening
Yeah.
and enjoying today's conversation.
Yeah.
All right.
And just to give you a preview for next week, we're going to be picking up on that business discussion there,
Mhm.
right? So for persons, especially that is interested in getting into small businesses or that may have a small business, we encourage you to tune in next week because we will be dealing with the small businesses and how they should approach their finances
In these times.
in these times.
So would we have a distinguished guest with us next week again?
Well, I think we should ask her on air. Chances are she will say yes.
Well, she's welcome to answer for herself.
Mrs. Daniel, next week, small business.
No problem. I will be here. I'll put my
Yeah. Oh, that's glad to know you respond in the affirmative. Yeah. So, guys, again, thank you for joining us. And this has been what got the 11th edition
Yeah,
of the Money Talk.
episode 11.
Yep. So, God bless everyone. Enjoy the rest of your night and continue to be prudent in all
Yeah.
that you do, not just only with your money, but with your entire life.